Hey, Deserving listeners, Escaping Twin Flames, documentary on Netflix. Let's watch.
And I didn't expect this guy to be channeled as her twin flame and to have it happen so quickly.
Congratulations, Marlene.
So this whole thing kind of looks weird from the outside. You're just thinking, why are all these people going along with it? What we don't witness and feel is the iteration, the slippery slope, the progression from having somewhat of a free mind or mostly a free mind to having that free mind taken away from you through all the different cult techniques. We don't see that, but that's likely what had actually happened.
Had filed a restraining order, but according to Jeff and Shalia, you only have one twin flame and you have to make that relationship work. Told by a coach that the restraining order wasn't real. There was other people who had restraining orders. It was sort of seen as just like something that you had to work on within yourself.
This is bizarre, but of course, cults are often bizarre. Because you think, if you want to create a successful matchmaking or self-help organization, then that's one thing, but it's almost like they're purposely sabotaging themselves by forcing people to be with obviously bad candidates for them. She's talking about how her former partner has a restraining order, and Jeff and Shalia, well, actually the coaches, so the organization has grown, and so when you have a successful twin flame couple within the Twin Flames universe, then Jeff and Shalia might hire those individuals. And there was some clips about Jeff talking with one of the coaches about, you're going to be rich, you're going to have so much money, and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, so with the coaches, they follow in line completely step by step what Jeff would say. If they were never in the cult, they probably wouldn't say these things, right? They've been indoctrinated. So that's why Jeff and Shalia probably designate them as coaches, because they know that they have been sufficiently brainwashed. And so this other couple is telling her that this guy with the restraining order, he's your twin flame, you need to overlook it. And I'm thinking, why would you sabotage? There's a lot of fish in the sea. Why that fish? If you're trying to create a track record of success, why would you go for the very person that is very unlikely to work? What's the thinking there? And Jeff and Shalia seem to be doing that as well. Is it just because of this psychopathic need to control? Well, okay, duh. That when you have a cult, it's all about control, and there's various different methods of control. This has been used before, where you will have a compound of the cult members, and you will separate couples, just like, okay, you guys aren't really, God speaks through me. The two of you aren't made for each other. And so your wife is now supposed to be with me, and you, husband, are supposed to be with that other woman or something. And whether it's conscious or not, the mechanism, the effect is that it separates people from their support system. And so if you can get cult members, because you're also recruiting. So if they force her to get with this other guy, then because she's a cult member, he will have to join the cult. And then it's also possible that the cult leaders are also thinking, well, this other person is desperate to be with you, and so this is a kind of a sure thing, and so we can get another member. And also, since you can't turn to him for support because you don't have a good relationship, then I will have total control over you and be able to extract power and money and influence over you. So, yikes. Who knows what the motivation. But it's just such bad business, because for the members, they're going to potentially wake up eventually and say, like, that whole thing was bullshit. Does that mean this whole thing is bullshit? Because that was the last person on earth that they should have been saying was my twin. If anyone else would have been better than that person. Why that person? Boy, is this a failure. This is all a sham. It seems like if you wanted to play the long game with the cult, you would have your members, take a little bit more time. But, if you're trying to form a cult, and also if you have vulnerabilities personality-wise, you might need continual evidence that your thing is successful. And when there's a single person in the group, it's so threatening to you that you just do whatever you can internally and externally to force them to be with just anybody. And it's just like, well, there's someone that you have a phone number for, and it's your former boyfriend. Never mind that there's a restraining order. Get back with that person. So not only that, but then she says, according to her, several people in the Twin Flames universe had former partners or current partners that had had past restraining orders that were, and they were being forced to overlook that. It's like, is that one of the green flags for Jeff and Shalia? A restraining order? Well, that's obviously your twin flame. Like, wow. And then, of course, you have the whole model of the mirroring, which is anytime you complain, it's really supposed to be complaining about yourself.
If you heal yourself, you are able to heal the relationship. You know, we dated a really long time, and we're still dating. We're still going to see each other. More. We are seeing each other.
Seeing each other? Are you really?
Not like...
Wow, this is hard to watch. I'm sure it's getting worse because we're only in the beginning of this documentary, but yikes. I mean, you hear it in her voice, right? It sounds like she's thinking, I don't know if I want to be with him. And it also sounds like she's drawn some boundaries. You know, I'm seeing him. And then Jeff, without any investigation, seemingly without any compassion, like there's a clear, you know, it's he's not directly saying this, but there's a clear message of, that's your twin flame. I have established that. You need to be with that person, regardless of any other information. Golly. And I can't imagine the amount of indoctrination and brainwashing that all those, because we watch this, we're like, what's happening? The amount of effective indoctrination. And then you wonder, since Jeff was talking about a cult on Twitter in 2012, you wonder if he was actually like studying how to be a cult member. Right? Yeah, it's possible. And he's thinking, okay, I need to have this element. I need to have this element.
I wasn't in a relationship with him, but I was told to sort of believe that I was, and that even if he had put up a boundary, that the boundary wasn't real. That's what we were told we needed to work on.
So if the guy breaks up with her and says, I don't want to be with you, then Jeff and Shalia are like, oh, that doesn't exist. You need to be. So telling the members to stalk people and abuse them? Wow.
So whatever it takes, it's worth it. Whatever you have to move through, it's worth it. Whatever you have to do, it's worth it.
At that time, my twin flame person was having a baby with someone else in a totally different relationship, in a different state.
If I'm understanding this right, they're telling her that even though this other guy, I'm just wondering how the guy gets even on their radar. Does it just come up in conversation? I'm guessing that they're grilled. Like, tell me all the guys that you know. And then something just sparks for them. And they're like, oh, that must be your twin flame. And then she tells him, well, he's married and has a kid and lives in another state. Oh, but that's your twin flame. I'm never wrong. So you need to make that happen. Tell me that this woman doesn't like stalk a random married guy.
Trumps everything. This is what we've been telling everyone since day one. All the bullshit, all the nonsense, all the fuckery, all the personal protection orders, all the ex-girlfriends, wives, husbands, marriage, kids, all those things are trumped by this one simple thing. Yeah. Your twin flame union.
Golly. Yeah. It's so ridiculous. It's so astonishing. And there's all these other people in the class. I think there's dozens of people observing this. And yeah, you just got to figure the amount of indoctrination. And then, of course, since even if you're on the fence and you're an audience member, you're like, well, no one else is saying anything, so maybe I'm the crazy one. Today's video is sponsored by Ada. So I got COVID recently. It was probably the sickest I've ever been in my entire life. It was the worst. Well, did you know there are treatments you can take for COVID-19? And that means that there's something you can do if you get COVID, things you can do to avoid getting really sick. And that's where Ada comes in. You take their free questionnaire online. I've taken it. It's confidential. And you find out if you or a loved one may be eligible for treatment. If eligible, you can talk to a clinician via telehealth within 2 hours. And if prescribed, you can pick up your treatment from a local pharmacy. So click the link below to find out if you are eligible and learn more about treatment options.
Shalia says I'm well fucked, meaning I get all the sex I want and need.
Jeff and Shalia posted that men need to have sex every day, and that if your man wants sex, then you need to give him sex.
Well, so who knows what the agenda there is, but in cults, they almost always will control your sexuality because it is open for shaming or control, because our society is so screwed up about sex that most people, if not everyone, is a little messed up sexually because of the trauma regarding society and upbringing and everything. So it opens the door for someone to come in and define sex for other people. And so you can control that. And when you control people's sex and their sexual activity through either shaming, like IBLP would say that most sexual urges or activities are shameful. And so the individual has that internalized and they start shaming themselves. And there's all these measures in place to make sure that they only do one thing within sexuality that they might not even want to do, And so there's all this pressure, and that will distract your cult members from thinking about other things like, do I want to be in this cult? Also, it demeans the individuals such that they need to be redeemed. They need someone to pick them up after they've brought themselves down by the internalization of these. And where do they go? Well, they go to the cult and they say, forgive me or bring me out of this or help me. And then, it's just a circle, right? So how the Twin Flames people are controlling this is by controlling two things. One is they're basically saying, if you're a man, you must want sex all the time, regardless of your preferences. And if you're a woman, then regardless of your preferences, you need to have sex every day. So that's one mechanism possibly of this doctrine and this way of controlling people. Is just, it doesn't really have anything to do with sex. It just has to do with getting more control over every aspect. You can't have any aspect of the person's life that isn't controlled by the cult leader. You can't have your followers thinking, well, yeah, Jeff and Shalia are great when it comes to matchmaking, but they don't know anything about sex. As a cult leader, you have to be all-encompassing. Everything has to be under your umbrella. So that's one possibility. Another is that it's more simple than that, and Jeff just wants to have sex all the time and doesn't care about other people's preferences and doesn't have sex in a way that actually makes other people want to have sex with him every day. And so he has this bone to pick, if you will, excuse the pun, that he's like, I want to make sure that everyone understands. I'm really yelling at my partner, but I'm triangulating all these people in and saying, you all have to understand how men work. There's been a lot of gender talk, which of course is ridiculous. Yeah. So basically, cult, and this is very common to cults. It's basically, and a lot of other cults will have this, that the members are essentially being raped by the doctrine. This woman is saying that, I think what she's saying is she didn't want to have sex with her partner very often or maybe at all, but because of the pressure and the coercion, she had to have sex with him, even though she's like, oh, wow.
Shalia's in her closet, getting ready, and I come up and I just want to give her a little kiss. I knew we needed to make out, right? And she's all, no, I don't want this.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So surely, instead of raping your wife, you said, okay, it's fine, you're not in the mood. I can't imagine where this is headed.
I threw her on the bed and jumped on top of her. No, get off of me, no. And then we were making out. And she was giggling, hee, I love this, I love you.
Okay, well, it is possible that Shalia was being coy or being sarcastic or funny. So it's possible that Shalia was open to being convinced. She's like, I'm doing chores. And then, she gets into it. She's like, oh, okay, yeah. So it could have been something like that. But if you're a teacher and you are saying these things, the message could be taken away that it's okay to rape your partner. It's okay to rape people if you want to have sex. And of course, this is an age-old notion that is a part of the patriarchy. It's not new to him. He didn't invent it. He's just propagating it. So, yeah, yikes, pretty awful. And then for Shalia to just be like, yeah, that's the way. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on with Shalia. She's not often the one leading the way, but I'm really curious what her true self would be saying in these moments. If she is also completely on board with this, or if she isn't, or if she's on board with some things, but not, I don't know. Because there's a possibility she's a total victim as well. This is also a possibility that she's more of a victimizer than he is.
When I didn't want to have sex, I would feel really shameful and guilty, like there was something really wrong with me. And so I would end up doing the mirror exercise, trying to...
Yeah, it's all control. And, cult leaders will effectively do this, that she was recalling. She's having an impulse of like, I don't want to have sex with this guy right now. But immediately this mechanism kicks in that blames her. She is to mirror this and say, I'm upset right now because I don't want to, I'm upset at my husband because he wants to have sex with me and he's not listening to me. Okay, I need to mirror it. Okay, I'm upset at myself because I'm not listening to myself. Okay, so that means I do want to have sex with him. Yeah, that's when a cult has you. That's when they get their hooks in you, is that there's a mechanism inside of you that you've internalized that keeps you from yourself.
Colby, that I would give him as much sexual pleasure as he wanted. That's what Jeff promised every couple.
Who is this mystery man of Mr. Joshua that we have here sitting next to Marley?
Well, not a mystery man.
And then you wonder, is it some sort of fetish that he has? That he wants to know that people are having sex all the time? Does he ask him questions about it? Does he get off on that somehow? I don't know. Just looking, why? Upsetting.
How are you?
You don't like look like the same person. You're not the old Marley anymore. You're someone's.
All right, well, that is it for that episode, everyone. Please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really, really do.